When going into American Horror Story Season 5, Hotel, I knew two things. One, Lady Gaga won a Golden Globe for her performance. And two, a friend described it to me as horrible. And having seen the entire season, I can objectively say that I agree with both of those statements. Lady Gaga is incredible, and the rest of the season is not. I apologize for the lateness of this video, but as I'm sure you can agree, my classwork comes first. So without further ado, let's get into the true American Horror Stories, Hotel. James March was the founder and original owner of the Hotel Cortez, where the season primarily takes place. He lived in the early 20th century. He specially designed his hotel to assist him in his murderous endeavors. He is based on real-life serial killer H.H. Holmes, who lived in the 1890s and owned his own hotel, called the World's Fair Hotel. Holmes is responsible for the deaths of anywhere between 9 and 200 people, and he has gone down in history as America's first serial killer. He would take out life insurance claims on his victims who stayed at the hotel and then kill them, collecting the money from their insurance. Minus the insurance fraud and the name, James March is almost the exact same character of H.H. Holmes. Now, there are a lot of serial killers at the Devil's Night, so I'm just gonna rattle them off quickly, including James March. There was Eileen Wuornos, a woman who had been abused her entire life. She was working as a prostitute between 1989 and 1990. She killed 7 men and was convicted of murder and executed by lethal injection in 2002. She was also featured in the film Monster, where she was played by Charlize Theron. Also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer hailed from my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Between the 1970s and 1990s, he murdered at least 17 boys and men. He had a habit of raping, dismembering, and eating his victims. He even tried to reanimate their bodies by injecting battery acid into their brains. One of the most disgusting and despicable human beings, Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment. Sometime later, he claimed to have found God and claimed he had seen the error of his ways. But on November 28, 1994, he was murdered by another inmate. Also known as the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez was an American serial killer, rapist, and burglar, as well as a practicing Satanist. He terrorized residents of the greater Los Angeles area and residents of San Francisco between June 1984 and August 1985. He was found guilty of 19 murders, and he died in prison on June 7, 2013. John Wayne Gacy, played by John Carroll Lynch, who also played Twisty the Clown in the previous season, that being Freak Show. We already talked about Gacy in the last episode, so I'm just gonna skip over all that. But what I will say, Twisty the Clown in the previous season was obviously inspired by Gacy. Lynch played a character inspired by the infamous serial killer in season 4, then played the said killer in the very next season. So in the first season, he plays the inspiration, but then in the following season, he plays the real deal. Also, another thing that I noticed, Lynch was also in the 2007 film Zodiac, in which he played Arthur Lee Allen, one of the lead suspects in the real-life Zodiac killer case. And guess who's sitting at the same table on Devil's Night? The Zodiac himself. So, Lynch played a killer inspired by John Wayne Gacy, and similarly played a man suspected of being the Zodiac killer. Then, in technically 2 episodes, played the man who inspired the previous character, and played the man who inspired his last character, who's sitting across the table from another killer he played and was suspected of being. A little confusing, but it's a nice Easter egg. Speaking of, the Zodiac Killer was a pseudonym between the late 1960s and early 1970s. Experts are not sure how many victims he had. It is confirmed he had 5 murdered and 2 injured, but he claimed to have taken the lives of up to 37. The Zodiac Killer was never caught, and his identity remains a mystery to this very day. He would write letters to the police department and newspaper, taking credit for the crimes, while also giving clues as to where to find him. However, these clues were encrypted, and the police could not decipher them. It was a sick game the killer played. The Hotel Cortez is based on two real-life hotels. The World's Fair Hotel, H.H. Holmes's murder castle, and the Cecil Hotel, or as it's known today, the Stay on Main, as the hotel became synonymous with evil. So much so they had to change the name. In the Cecil Hotel, there have been dozens of murders, suicides, sightings of paranormal activity. Serial killers Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger both stayed at the hotel whilst in the midst of their murder spree. A baby was thrown out the window. Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, was staying in the hotel not long before her murder. And most famously, the death of Canadian college student Elisa Lam, and the infamous elevator CCTV footage. There's far too much to mention right here. This is a general overview of the incidents that have occurred in this hotel, but I encourage you to look into this even further if you are interested. The Chicken Coop Murders, also known as the Wineville Chicken Murders, was a series of killings perpetrated by Gordon and Sarah Northcott between March 10, 1928 and January 11th, 1929. While living on a chicken farm, Gordon and Sarah Northcott would abduct, abuse, molest, and murder young boys. There were 4 victims. They were arrested and tried. Gordon was sentenced to death by hanging, and Sarah received life imprisonment. In the show, the true Chicken Coop Murders are used as a plot device to explain the death of the maid, Hazel Evers' son, adding a tragic backstory to the character. The inspiration behind Lady Gaga's The Countess was a real-life countess named Elizabeth Bathory. She has been labeled by Guinness World Records as the most prolific female serial killer in history. In Hungary, in 1590 to 1609, the Blood Countess, as she is referred to, lived in a castle and would regularly invite young virgin women and girls to come live with her and act as her servants and maids. It was later revealed that she would torture, kill, and drain the blood of all of these women and girls. It was never officially established how many murders she has. However, it is definitive that she killed at least 650. She was arrested, tried, and sentenced to house arrest for the rest of her life. She has gone down in history as one of the most evil human beings to ever walk the face of the earth. She has become synonymous with the term vampire, and the show used the archetypes of a royal countess and vampire who's obsessed with children as the archetype for Lady Gaga's The Countess in the season. She is obsessed with beauty and immortality. However, I would argue that in Hotel, Countess is a lot more likable and relatable than Elizabeth Bathory was in real life. Every single season of American Horror Story takes a certain horror archetype and uses it as a conduit in order to explore a horror that takes place in real life. And season 5 is no different. This season takes the idea of ghosts and vampires and uses them as an exploration of grief after the loss of loved ones. Throughout the entire season, we see the ghosts of people forced to live an eternity without the ones they loved. We see vampires gifted with supernatural powers, but the one thing they truly want is something they cannot have. Immortality is a curse, and in the Hotel Cortez, that's what we find. Room after room filled with nothing but cursed people, forced to live an eternity when all they want to do is move on and be with the ones they loved. We see a countess who has everything she could ever wanted: money, power, control, beauty, immortality, but all she wants is to be with the people she's loved. She's forced to live an eternity in bitterness, filled with shallow sex and a false sense of stability and love through the children she abducts and corrupts. We see mothers who've had their children taken away from them, forced to wake up every day and live in hate and regret, away from their children, away from the people they have devoted their lives to loving and supporting. The season juxtaposes beings that live forever to live without that which we want above all else. People die. People are taken away from us. People leave us. And all we want is for them to love us back. But sometimes we can't have that. And that is something truly terrifying. Forced to live in hell on earth, where we are tormented with our regret, with our loss every single day. Even the bad people of this world, sometimes are those who have been hurt the most. People driven to insanity, to abuse, to addiction, or to just being a terrible person because they themselves have lost. Grief is a terrible thing that can drive someone insane. And in many ways, it's something that we cannot prevent. Terrible things will happen, and we are left to pick up the pieces of our lives and just expected to move on. But sometimes we can't move on, but we cannot let that decide who we are. We choose who we are. Bad things happen, but it is up to us to make things right. And for nothing else, to make it right for ourselves. American Horror Story Hotel. Okay, so as I said at the beginning of this video, this season's not that great. I mean, there are certainly things working for it, and there's certainly stuff to like about. I mean, I have met a number of people who say this is one of their favorite seasons, and, you know, for good reason. There is a lot to like about it. There's a lot to unpack, to theorize. As I've said, this season, for all intents and purposes, does everything right that the previous seasons have done. But I just, personally, I can't shake the feeling that at times it comes across as just being not poorly done, just misguided, you know? Because, like I said, Lady Gaga was incredible in this season. Everything from her acting to writing for her character, the production design, everything involving her character is incredibly well done. And I can't shake the feeling that during the production meetings, creators of the show were like, awesome, we got Lady Gaga. Let's just devote everything to revolving this season around her, making her character and her story and everything involving Lady Gaga in this season the best it possibly can be. And we'll fill in the gaps later on. And that's pretty much what they did. I saw what they were going for, and in some ways I feel like they did achieve that. Like I said, the message of it doesn't matter what terrible things have happened to you, it matters who you choose to be in the future. That message came across very clearly, and if that was the point, then good on them. They achieved that, you know? But I just feel like, okay, let me back up. Let me talk about some of the things that sort of frustrated me about this season, because this season's very frustrating. Okay, so like the main character, or at least who I thought was being set up as the main character, played by Wes Bentley. He is a detective on the case of a serial killer who kills people under the gimmick of the 10 Commandments. So yeah, they're ripping off 7. Whatever, I can forgive that. He's set up as the good guy. He's like the underdog. He's the underdog, down on his luck, sympathetic guy. He lost his son a number of years back. Him and his wife's relationship have been very strained. His wife's been very depressed. His daughter's been having issues with it. He's trying desperately to solve this case and catch the killer, but at the same time, he's trying his hardest to keep his family together. Then a couple episodes goes by, and his wife leaves him. His wife finds out that their son isn't dead. He has been turned into a vampire and is one of the Countess's children. So she leaves the family, leaves her daughter behind, leaves her husband, and pledges her eternal servitude and loyalty to the Countess in order for her to be with her son. Understandable. Completely understandable. That's a really interesting character development, because as she has stated, she loved her son about more than anyone else in her family. She acknowledges that it's selfish to say, but it's true. She loved her son and would do anything to be with him again. So she leaves the family in order to go back to him. It's a very it is a very understandable and very interesting direction to take the characters. It was a fascinating storyline. Then some time goes by, and it's revealed that Wes Bentley's character has been the serial killer all along. And they try to pass off the serial killer's actions as altruistic. They build up the serial killer as being this heinous, violent, disgusting villain. But then in one scene, they try to make you not make him an anti-hero necessarily. They make him the hero. So, not gonna lie, when I was watching the first episode or two, and when they introduced the characters, I thought to myself, how shitty would it be if they did this really predictable and cheap reveal of the good guy being revealed as the bad guy? And I thought, no, this show wouldn't stoop that low. And then they stoop that low. And it's really cheap and really poorly done. And not just that, Wes Bentley Bentley, okay, Wes Bentley's not the greatest actor in the world. Sorry. It's hard to be a good actor. It's hard making it in Hollywood. He's not the best, okay? And he had me, personally, he had me rooting for him. And at a point, I was like, when it was revealed that his wife had left him and he was being consumed by this case, it got me to think, okay, this is going to be end very tragically, but it's going in a good and interesting direction. But then, once it's revealed that he's the serial killer all along, the serial killer who we've been rooting against the entire season, just at the flip of a switch is now the good guy, Wes Bentley's acting becomes bad. Like, really bad. He never blinks. He has this very overly serious, dramatic way of speaking, very monotone, and he becomes very wooden, and it becomes very bad and over the top and terrible. You know, I'm gonna stop doing that voice because it's annoying me just to do it. But, so, they set up the good guy going after the bad guy. Then, tragedy happened to that family, and it's really interesting and really deep, and it's something that I love the direction of, okay, well, maybe this family's not going to make it back together. At least that's an interesting idea. Then they throw a really predictable, really cheap and cheesy curveball into the mix by making the good guy, turns out he was the bad guy all along, and that the bad guy was actually the good guy this entire time. Now, on that, I don't disagree with that. They explain that all the people that were killed in this situation because of the serial killer, they had it come. They were criminals, they were murderers, they were sex offenders, they were terrible people who, in a way, deserved what they had coming to them. But at the same time, they established that the proper way to deal with criminals is by bringing legal justice upon the perpetrators. And then in one scene, they flip the switch and say, nope, time to take vigilante justice into our hands. And I understand the motive, but it just was so sudden and just didn't work for me necessarily. And then the real kicker is this. By the end, the detective has been killing people, finishing his work, finishing the 10 Commandments killings, and he gets shot and killed by police. And he can only return to the hotel one night a year on Devil's Night. And that is where he can reunite with his family. Him, his wife, his son, and their daughter. Him, a ghost, his wife, and their son, vampires, and their normal human daughter. And they all fall asleep in each other's arms. A big, happy family. What? Are you kidding me? No. Hell no. No. Are you? Okay. Are you what? No. Wait. Let me calm down here a sec. Okay, so he is a murderous, delusional psychopath who kills people and takes pleasure in it. She is a bloodthirsty monster. She is a vampire who openly prefers her son over her children, who willingly, of her own free will, left her underage daughter to fend for herself while she went to go make herself happy. The son is a bloodthirsty monster, and we're just supposed to accept the fact that they're a dysfunctional family? Are you fucking kidding me? No, this is such a shitty ending. Like, I saw what they were going for, but it was a storyline. It was an arc that started with so much promise and so interesting, and it had so many unique twists and turns to it. A family that, by the end, would not have gotten together. Sometimes what people need is to be apart. That would have been an interesting point. But no, I just didn't like this. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was shitty. No. Bad acting, poorly written, just misguided. You know what I mean? Also, what the hell was the point of Sarah Paulson's character? I mean, I get thematically she fits in with the whole people having to live in eternity without their loved ones, and I get that, but Sarah Paulson is such an incredible actor, and she was so wasted in this season. I mean, she's just playing this weird, over-the-top, strange character that she walks into rooms as people are dying, and she cries. It was exactly how I felt about Evan Peters' involvement in American Horror Story Coven. It's great seeing them there, but I feel like as per the character they played, it was wasted potential. Also, Kathy Bates's character and her relationship with her son in the season, that was something also I would have liked to have had a little more development on. Like, okay, so she plays this woman who gets walked over all the time. Her son hates her for some unknown reason, and from the perspective of her character, the season is about her taking control of her life. With her relationship with her son, I feel like it was hard to get into because there was very little explanation as to what exactly happened between the two of them. Because at one point he says something to the effect of he was in rehab, he would tell stories to these hardcore drug addicts and criminals of the things that she had done to him, you know, how she drove him into becoming an addict, and all these drug addicts were apologizing to him for all the terrible things she did to him. But it's never explained exactly what she did to him, especially to deserve all of this hate and to drive him to drug addiction. And she at no point denies doing it to him, so clearly she did something, but what is that something? Well, we have no idea because they just don't explain it. And it would have been so much more interesting had they explored that relationship. Like, okay, what exactly did she do to him? Why does he hate her so much? Is he overreacting to this? Well, if he's overreacting, then what is he overreacting about? You know, we're just supposed to accept the fact that he hates her, and this whole dramatic subplot in the film, or in the season, we just have to shut up, suck it up, and accept it. And that whole subplot just didn't work for me. There were so many subplots in this season too. I mean, once they're trying to do so much in this season. They're trying to say so much that once you try and once you have so many subplots, you're overextending yourself and you're taking away time which you could develop the other ones properly. You know what I mean? Once you're trying to do if you're trying to have 4 subplots, if you're the family, the countess, the serial killings, the relationship between the former model and the transgender woman, it's all this stuff is going on that once you're overextending yourself, they should have cut down a couple of the subplots so they could properly develop the characters and develop the stories. Also, I don't think this is just me, but all of the men in this season, they look exactly the same. I mean, Wes Bentley, Matt Bomber, Evan P, just all the male characters in the season, there were moments when I had to genuinely pause the episode and be like, okay, who is that guy now? Because everybody looks so similar. And from what I understand, even people on set had a hard time telling people apart. Because they're just handsome white men with very similar jawlines, and they just haircuts, and they all look the same to me. Sorry, that's just me. Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, it's not unwatchable. There is stuff to like about it, but for me personally, it's just, I am effectively caught up on all the seasons, and I can say with confidence that this has been my least favorite season. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Not very, very misguided, over-bloated, overextended. Some of the themes and the message are very well done and very interesting. Some of the acting was incredible. I mean, particularly Lady Gaga and Evan Peters. I mean, those two, and Kathy Bates, some of the best in the series. I give this season a lot of shit, but it does do some things right. And Lady Gaga, for sure, deserved her Golden Globe win for this season. And Kathy Bates, I mean, come on, she's Kathy Bates. We all knew she was going to be great. So yeah, this has been my true AHS ear for American Horror Story Hotel. I'm sorry, it was a long time coming. It's been a couple months since my last upload. I know I promised that I was going to upload a new video every week to coincide with the release of the new season of American Horror Story, but schoolwork got ahead of me, working, my job, family vacation, stuff like that. I will be coming out with the rest of the True AHS Ear videos pretty soon. My next upload will be True AHS Season 6, Roanoke. I do have a lot of things to say about that season as well. It is the one people talk about the least, but I look forward to explaining it, analyzing it, and reviewing it for all of you for your viewing pleasure. So again, thank you for putting up with me and putting up with me being late for this video. It's been a long time coming, but I promise I will have more videos to come in the future, and I look forward to sharing those with you. So until next time, this is Riley Thorpe, and this has been my True AHS explained analysis and review for Season 5, Hotel. Thank you.